Hey, what is up, Headhunters, executive recruiters, and search firm owners? This is Headhunters Live here with Chris Wessel. Unfortunately, we don't have Neil Lebovitz in today, but today we'll be interviewing Kim Whiteley, the president of Mee Derby. Guys, give us 1 second. We are just making sure that we are able to broadcast into the group.
I don't have it up yet, David.
Yep, I'm actually working on mine as well. Here we go. Complete post details. Go live. All right, guys, give us 1 second. A couple technical issues. We're trying to get this thing to go live here.
Just because we can hire technical people doesn't mean we know it.
Well, I know exactly. Let's see. In the post details. Yeah, I had to enter my. I have to create the post details. Once you create the post details, yeah, there we go. Create the post details on the right hand side. I just went live in the Herc. Going live right now. Cool. All right, here we go. Restart, guys. All right, you're seeing how the sausage is made. All right, everybody, welcome to the Headhunters Live. This is David Stephen Patterson here. Y'all may know me as DSP. All right, over here we have Chris Wessel, best looking man in the biz, and Neil Lebovitz, who is our other host. Unfortunately, cannot make it in today. He's dealing with his shoulder issues. For those who don't know, he got into a bicycle accident. He got hit by a car on his bike on a bicycle. And hurt his shoulder pretty bad. He's going through some physical therapy right now, so he is currently handling that. So for right now, Chris and I are holding down the fort. Today, by the way, we have a very exciting guest, and Chris, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about this. Kim Whiteley.
It's in a pretty cool industry, like being in the business of hiring recruiters for recruiting firms and staffing companies and workforce solutions. Like that's an interesting niche within a niche. It's like this inception of recruiting.
It is. And for those who don't know, so Kim is the president of Mee Derby. Mee Derby is I say rec direct, but Mee Derby is a staffing firm or recruitment company that recruits other recruiters and staffing professionals. So whether it be for larger firms needing a national director of sales, selling to enterprise accounts, or even individual recruiters, Mee Derby recruits in the recruitment business. So she recruits folks like us, right?
And I also noticed too on their site, and I did a little probing into it, executives in other roles, CFOs, COOs, things like that for recruiting companies, staffing companies, RPO companies, things like that. So I thought that was pretty fascinating as well. So certainly the recruiters and the salespeople, but it looks like a lot of other key roles as well.
Oh, for sure. And so we're going to bring her on in just a minute, and we're talking about that. And here's what we're going to be talking about. If you are if you're a smaller firm and you're looking to grow, Kim's going to shed a lot of light as far as well, for one, the state of the market, because she has a very unique view of where the market's going, but also for looking to hire, retain, how to train recruiters, how to bring someone in who's more experienced, how to make sure that you actually have a compelling employer value proposition so you can bring on A players. Because I know in this business it's really tough. In this, there's so much turnover. It's very hard to find really good people, really good recruiters who don't want to go independent. So we're going to talk about how to do that. Before we do so, though, I do have to mention our amazing sponsors. First off, we'll start with Back Office Staffing Solutions. So in this business, particularly if you're doing direct hire, if you're not adding contracting or staff augmentation or interim staffing to the mix, you're really missing out. If you're only doing direct hire, it's feast and famine, as you guys know. But if you add contractors to the mix, it provides really nice recurring revenue. However, adding contractors and staff augmentation is a bit of a pain in the butt with all the different regulations and insurance and covering payroll. So this is Neil's company, Back Office Staffing Solutions. Go to backofficenow.com. Great company. They got some branded apps, so you can actually look a lot bigger to your clients than you really are. So get a demo at backofficenow.com. Now, my company, the Digital Headhunter, we help search firm owners build out sales and marketing systems. So I won't go into a lot of detail here, but if you want a complete sales and marketing system built out for you in 30 days or less, without having to bang your head against the wall, trying to figure out your tech stack and how to do it, go to thedigitalheadhunter.com/build. And if you want to get our free sales guide, I just released this about a month ago. In fact, I just had a comment from somebody on LinkedIn wrote me, said, God, this is gold. I'm gonna read this every day, every morning for a week. So it is a really good guide. Go to realdsp.me/killer-sales, or comment sales in the comments below, and I'll make sure to get you a free copy. While we're at it, one last thing. If any of you are looking for a VA, Russell here, can help you hire and onboard a VA that is trained on like sourcing, all the different things that you would need a VA to do as a recruiter. Go to chrisrussell.com, book a call, and he'll walk you through a step-by-step roadmap on how to hire, onboard, and retain a VA that can probably double, triple, quadruple your output. In fact, I would say with the most important hires you can ever make before you can hire a recruiter, get yourself a VA. Take care of all those low-value tasks so you can concentrate on closing deals. All right. All right.
So,
oh yeah.
Good job getting through all that. So I am trying to get us live in independent recruiter IRSA group. I followed your directions, DSP, and I got my screen up, but it still can't click the go live button. It's still grayed out, so I don't know.
Oh, on the right hand side, on the right hand side, I'll ask you to create the post. Just put Headhunters Live, Kim Whiteley. Put the same thing in description, and then it should be able to.
Yeah, the green box is checked on the left that says complete post details, but then it doesn't seem to let me proceed to go live.
All right. Well, no worries. We'll have to move on, I suppose. But everybody can watch the show. If they can't watch it, that's all right. If they can't watch it, they can watch it on us on YouTube.
We'll figure it out for next time.
We'll figure it out right now. Kim, welcome. Sorry about all the trouble here.
No worries.
Yeah, you're seeing how the sausage is made. So that said, Kim, welcome. So for those who don't know, we've been hiatus for about a month. And so we have a great slate of guests lined up. And our first guest out of the gate is Kim. She's the president of Mee Derby, which is a very well-known search firm that specializes in recruiting, well, people like us, right? These weird folks are, for some reason, find themselves in the wide world or the weird world of recruiting. But Kim, tell us about you. Like, what do you? Who are you? What do you do? Like, who are you?
Well, so Kim Whiteley, thrilled to be here. Mee Derby, as both Chris and David has said, is an executive search firm for the staffing industry. So we are filling all levels of roles across the staffing industry, from a president of a privately held firm to a recruiter for either a search firm or a staffing firm. It's a little daunting to say I've been in the industry for close to 30 years, cut my teeth on the staffing side, working for what is now Ronstadt, was then, Spherion. Spent about the last 10 years in the staffing industry on the IT side, so really know the IT staffing industry well. Mee Derby services all verticals of the staffing industry. But David, one of the questions you asked was, how did Mee Derby get their name?
Yeah.
And so Mee Derby is a combination of our CEO and founder, Robin Mee, her last name, and her original partner, Jeanette Derby. And so when Robin decided that she wanted to focus on the staffing industry, Jeanette decided she wanted to continue focusing on the law firm community and legal search. But at the time, they were both new to the business, and versus changing the stationery, we kept the name. Jeanette is actually a client and continues to be a client. She has a legal search firm in DC. So we continue to support her when she needs recruiters or salespeople. But if you look outside of just the Mee Derby name, if you look at our logo, it is truly, when you see the 3 heads, 4 sets of eyes, it is the true headhunter. And it is, collaboration. We're all about collaboration and a team environment.
So, all right. So
I thought it had something to do with Maryland, because I saw it was M&D, and I knew you were in Maryland. And I was like, maybe the fact that those 2 letters added up to where you were. Little stuff like my company name is PeopleWise, and it also happens to be my son's initials. Like, kind of. So there's sometimes there's like, I don't know. So like I was like, maybe it's because they're in Maryland and they were like the M&D. I don't know, whatever.
I think a lot of people in this industry do that. So we have there's a vendor to the industry, Lauren Jones, who branched off out of Volt and opened a company called Leap Consulting, which is a combination of her first name, her daughter's first names, and her husband's first name. So we tend to name our companies after our family.
How did you get into that space from going like sort of Spherion for so long? And how did you decide to go into that type of recruiting?
Hey, by the way, guys, real quick, I'm going to switch up the camera layout just because there we go.
There we go.
Because we have, make it a little bit easier for us. There we go. All right, cool. All right, guys. We only see part of Kim's face there. All right, we're good to go now. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Well, so Chris, you asked how I moved over to the search side. So, right out of college, after a short stint with Ringling Brothers headquarters, which is another story, I was doing legal secretary placement. So I cut my teeth in executive search. When I decided I needed to go to work for a little bit bigger firm and get some management experience is when I moved over to the staffing side, in that traditional branch manager role, and then progressed through area manager, regional manager to managing large profit centers. When after my son was born, I decided that I didn't want to commute anymore. My branch was, that was before the world of working remote or being able to even have a hybrid schedule. My branch in the DC market was 56 miles from my house. And so in this market, that could be a 1 hour or 5 hour commute. And so I had, Robin and I had always stayed in contact. When I worked for smaller search firms, she and I used to do splits, like everybody does splits in the old days. And then when I was with Spherion Ronstadt, we used Mee Derby to hire salespeople. So I decided I wanted a role where I could continue to use all my staffing industry contacts, but have a more flexible work schedule and work from home.
So all right. So now, I'm curious. And of course, I want to ask some questions, and I'm sure the audience wants to hear as well. Questions about how to hire, retain, et cetera. So, by the way, if anybody has any questions around that, post them in the comments below. We'll try to get your questions answered. But what I want to know though is in your business, I'm sure you've heard trainers say this. I say it all the time as well. Qualify your clients. Find good clients, because there's a lot of bad clients out there that have bad behaviors. They ghost on you to provide feedback or whatever, right? And so I know most recruiters have the crap that that just burns their butt about clients. They can complain about it all day. I'd imagine in your position, working with other recruiters, it can be fairly unique. So what are the things that you just burn your hide about having recruiters as clients? So I gotta imagine it's unique compared to other industries. Like, what are some things that you hate about working with other search firms that you wish they would do better?
Follow-up. I mean, I think that's, we preach to our people every day, follow-up, whether it's good news or bad news. In fact, it just came up on, our staff meeting yesterday, where we had to kind of give everybody on the team a reminder that if the candidate didn't get the job, you still have to follow up with them and deliver that feedback. You can't that's the same on the client side. Mm-hmm. So follow up, whether the news is good or bad. If you're working on a search and you're 2 weeks in and you don't have anybody, you still need to call the client and say, here's what I'm seeing in the market. Here's why I don't think I can find candidates for this role, or tell me where there's a little bit of flexibility. But follow up is key.
Follow up. Yeah, I can see that. I think for me, one of the things that I always find interesting, and you may agree, maybe you see something different. I don't know, but we'll find it. But I can say from my perspective, as much as recruiters want to work on good search assignments, right? We want to work on those search assignments with a great employer value proposition, makes it easy to sell. They're paying great money. It's great benefits, maybe great work-life balance, and that's all these different things. We're always looking for that. However, those same recruiters who really want to work with those great companies, when they want to hire
for their own companies,
for their own company, they're the worst recruiters in the world, right? They
I don't
post
want to
a
pay
job,
that much. I don't want to
yeah. Or they just post an ad. They spout off about how they recruit passive candidates, yet they never recruit passive candidates for their own firm, which is crazy. So what do you see? Like how do you see, or do you see that? Do you see
We
that?
absolutely see that. And we are in a very unique position in the industry because we see real live comp data. We see what other employers are doing to maintain and retain their good people. And so we're in that position where we get to share that information and help, guide some of the compensation plans. We do a lot of work around compensation plans in the staffing industry. And you either have a client who's going to go along with that or not. And if they're not, we're likely not going to be successful in the search, quite honestly.
Great insights too, because a lot of firm owners will be in a vacuum. Just like if you're hiring for salespeople or anything for any company,
Right.
They'll be like, I got this comp plan and it makes a lot of sense, in my head. But that doesn't mean it's reflected, it's competitive in the market. And, I remember at one point, a dozen or so, maybe 15 plus years ago, I was a recruiter in-house for Yo, and I was hiring recruiters in several different markets. And it was fascinating to hear all their different comp plans and how they compare to maybe ours, et cetera. And it's just when you hire for and you're so entrenched in that space, and that's all you talk to is people in the recruiting industry. So, if you say to someone, hey, if you want to get somebody good, this is what you're up against. This is what you got to offer. That is remarkably valuable market data.
Well,
I'm sure hopefully they listen to it.
And for the most part, most do. And we are as actively entrenched in the industry as we possibly can be. We are very active with the American Staffing Association. Several people on our staff are volunteers to ASA, whether they run different councils, offer to speak. We are part of what's called the mentor-mentee program. So several of us at any given time typically have 1 to 2 mentees that we spend. Usually it's about an hour every other week with guiding and training them. We're actively involved with SIA as well, and with a lot of the state staffing associations. So very entrenched in the industry.
Let me ask you this. So you get all sorts of viewpoints into, of course, the market data and what you should pay and stuff like that. And I'm sure you'll be able to, we'll talk about what do you got to do to attract a good recruiter or a good salesperson to your team. I'm curious, what are these recruiters and salespeople that are out there telling you about why they'd be open to a move, or what they're not getting in their current employer? What are some of the drivers or their patterns there in terms of what makes a recruiter or salesperson want to move on from where they're at?
Well, a couple things. One, leadership. They always, and that is true. People don't leave companies; they leave leaders. So, if they're not working for a good leader, right now, we're seeing people leave because of calls back to office. We have a lot of clients that are moving back to 5 days in the office, and people that have been working remotely and have proven that they can be just as productive are not interested in going back to the office 5 days a week. And certainly we see value in an office environment, especially for people, just starting out in the industry. There is nothing like that, desk-to-desk mentoring.
Totally.
But we are absolutely seeing people leave where there's not flexibility and work-life balance.
And it's crazy because that's the stuff we preach to our clients. And it's just so fun. It's fascinating. And we'll talk to clients about the flexibility. Listen, you have this professional, they're performing, et cetera. And so even within the staffing industry, you're saying, they're like, hey, you're hitting your numbers, you're doing good, but we need you back in here. And they're like, I can do this somewhere else.
Right. Well, I was talking to a client about it yesterday. In some cases, it's what I call old school thinking. The old school thinking of, you have to sit in a branch and be tethered to a desk from 8:30 to 5:30. Well, that doesn't matter. We have found that if you support people in their lives, you have an employee for life.
Yeah.
When you don't support them in their lives is when they're looking to make a move.
Yeah. And those employees' lives, their needs evolve and change over time. And
Absolutely. We've seen it across our own, we're a team of 14 across the country. And, I've definitely been one of them that, started, had a young son, then moved into basically full-time caregiving for both of my parents and managing a team of caregivers while also, managing the schedule of my son. And to know that I always had the flexibility to do my job on the hours that I could do my job as long as I was performing and, meeting the needs of both my candidates and clients. So, hence the reason I've been here for 18 years now.
Well, I know that I learned this from I learned from Jeff Kay. He was he mentioned this to me, and in terms of when he. Obviously, I'm sure he still does it, but when he hires people and brings them in, he always tries to align their goals with his goals, right? So obviously, for him, they're looking to build a company, increase their billings, start new practice areas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they're always trying to find ways to take that person's own individual goals, whether it be to buy a new house or to start a family or to build a business, but maybe build a business within their four walls, but try to find out what their own personal goals are and try to find a way to attach that or somehow align that with their company goals. And in fact, I remember hearing this from Jeff Hyman. So another Jeff Hyman, the author of Recruit Rockstars, and in a conversation with him, he had mentioned that when he hires or when he advises his clients on hiring, he always talks about how during the hiring process, you let them know, look, I understand that you may not stay here forever, and that's perfectly okay, right? I want to be, if I'm a stepping stone to where you want to go in your personal professional life, then I want to be on that stepping stone. Let's have the best time possible while we work together, so be productive as we can, and get them on board. And so I think a lot of it comes down to, just as you said, you gotta support the person in their life as well. And I think the more you can do that, and you may not stay with you forever, but in the 5 years that they are with you, they're going to outperform, and that's more you can ask, really. You know what I mean? I think if anybody can get that a good 5 years out of a person, where they really perform, I think we really can ask for more, or for more from a hire, in my opinion.
That's a realistic view too, that I see more people coming around to, because like day to day, 90% of my time is spent in recruiting, and mostly a solo desk with a VA and maybe a little help now and then. But more people in the 20 years I've been doing this have come around to that viewpoint, David. Not everybody, but some of them are getting there, where they're like, hey, wait, we could have a mutually beneficial relationship. Because listen, we sometimes have clients for a year, 2 years. Like, it's the same thing. Right. Like, let's have a mutually beneficial relationship for a period of time, and it works for as long as it works. And if we both got value, and and it helped us both go in the direction we want to go. I don't know. Like, is that how it is with your people, Kim? Like, what keeps people on your team?
I think supporting them in their lives, and just giving them great opportunities to work on great searches, and giving them opportunities to build their own personal brand in the industry. I think that's so important. We have a lot of folks that do a lot of different things in the industry. For example, there's a podcast going on right now, Women of Color in Staffing. And we have somebody, one person from our team that is, representing on that podcast right now, because DE&I is of huge importance to all of us, but certainly near and dear to her heart. And it allows her to do something just a little bit different in the industry. And so we really value our people building their own brand in the industry as well.
Are they doing a full desk, or are you feeding them? Or how's that dynamic work with how things?
So they
flow?
Everybody on the team is full desk, myself and Robin included. Robin and I keep less searches on our desk, because our goal is to really make sure that everybody else on the team has a full plate. I would say that Robin and I are the main drivers of searches, and then we are pushing them out to everybody's desk. But we have such great tenure on the team that it has been really fun to start to watch people cultivating their own client relationships, or maybe it's a client relationship that we initially gave to them, but that client left and went to another staffing firm. And so, they brought Mee Derby with them. We do actually have two people that are right now solely candidate focused. One is, as you said, is a sourcer. We have utilized offshore resources for about the last 10 years. And, honestly, when I first set the thing up, I never thought that we could, that somebody sitting in India, for example, could get staffing industry executives on the phone. And it probably took us about 3 or 4 months to kind of tweak it and get it right. But it has been hugely successful for us. Mm-hmm. And, in the case of one of the folks that was with us last year, she supported Robin and I almost solely and was responsible for probably 7 or 8 C-level searches that we completed on a retained basis, where she found the candidate, did the research, and got people on our calendar.
One of the things I've found from the work I've done with like VAs and whatnot, just offshore resources, is that if you do put the effort in and the time and you go through some iterations and you make a couple of mistakes, and you get a lot of times people in our business think, well, I'm gonna have this RPO, whatever, here's a job description, send me a bunch of resumes for super cheap so I can turn around and bill it for a ton of money. And then, oh, surprise, surprise, it doesn't work. But like, if it's at the end of the day, these are people, these are employees. Like, you show them what you need done, give them the right resources, give them some direction, and a lot of times it can be very, very successful if you put the effort in.
Well, and absolutely. And they are as embedded in our team as any other team member. They are on our Bullhorn instance. They are on our LinkedIn RPS. They are a part of every single team meetings. In a lot of cases, we will bring them in to the first discovery call with a client on a search. And we always introduce it that way with the client, because just the value of hearing firsthand what the client is looking for and watching the interaction leads to great success on the search.
Oh my God. Yeah. And you would do the same thing if you had someone domestically. If you had someone here in the US, you would have them join you on the call. And like when I had a firm for a number of years, I had 3 or 4 recruiters working for me, and I'd bring one of them on an intake call when we go meet with the client, because then that way I didn't have to repeat it to them. And plus, they're more invested, right? They're more invested because they this isn't secondhand from like someone who brought in a job order. This is right from the source.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. When does a staffing firm or somebody in the staffing industry, recruiting industry, when do they turn to a resource like you? Because I think it's probably kind of interesting, like, because again, there's a lot of sometimes inconsistency between what service we provide to customers and how we do it for ourselves. And sometimes we just post an ad, and sometimes
that's
I would imagine a lot of recruiting firm owners fancy themselves pretty good at recruiting. Have you found there's like certain patterns of like when they like say, listen, Kim, like, we need your help on this, or like, what's that kind of turning point?
Well, I think so. A couple things. One, we don't do as much work with some of the bigger nationals, like the Ronstads, the Kelly. They come to us when it's a really challenging search, because those groups have huge pools of internal recruiters.
Right.
Our sweet spot is really the privately held staffing firm that could be anywhere from 10 million to $1 billion in revenue, but don't necessarily have their own internal TA. And we answer the question every day of, oh, you would think we're a recruiting firm. We should be able to hire our own people. The difference is you're a staffing firm that places accounting and finance people. You don't place staffing people. So your staffing industry, that's why I said we are as embedded in the industry. So they come to us because of our staffing industry contacts.
All right, so I'm curious about this. So I want to talk about the market, because I know a lot of recruiters listening to this, and I'm sure you hear it too. The market's tough. Not every industry, but just overall, it's weird. It's tough. It's harder to get clients. A lot of companies or a lot of firms, I'd imagine, are just like with any company in a growth economy. You can hire I don't want to say willy-nilly, but you can take a lot of risks when hiring because you have a lot of cash coming in. But when times are leaner, you have to be a lot more strategic about it, et cetera. So I'm curious, what are you seeing out there? Not just what you see personally, but I imagine you're talking to clients and they're telling you what they're seeing in the market. If they're able to grow, not grow, they're kind of shutting down growth or trimming down or whatever. So what are you seeing out there with the clients that you're working with in terms of how they see the market?
Well, I think starting to see, cautiously optimistic. I would tell you, when we went to the staffing industry conference in March, there was still a little bit of gloom and doom. The industry overall is down. Everybody's reporting numbers down, quarter over quarter. But recently, very, very optimistic. The outlook for the industry in general, for the staffing industry, is up 4%, for 2024. We feel very fortunate to be up when the industry's been down. We have seen a lot of what I call succession plannings on, these senior level roles, maybe owners of these privately held firms that didn't step out during the pandemic that now are like, okay, made it through, time to step out. A good bit of our work comes to us through private equity firms. Mm-hmm. So if a private equity firm is going in and looking to make a leadership change, so I would say that's where most of our retained search business comes from. But I think overall, like our clients that are light industrial staffing, they are saying that they're starting to see, the manufacturing plants come back around, that jobs are on the rise again. I think healthcare, nursing, there continues to be boundless opportunities in nursing and clinicians. So I think overall, we're seeing some positive increases across all industries. Be curious to see what you guys are seeing.
So related to that, with like the industry swings, I imagine, I know there's a lot of solo recruiters like me that, sometimes the storms get a little rough and they want to go, find some shelter, right? But I also know from years of hiring that in all sorts of fields that somebody who has worked for themselves sometimes isn't attractive to an employer, right? And so I'm curious, like, how often do you see like a solo recruiter go back to a firm? Does that happen? Is there resistance to that? And so I feel like that ties into the market conditions thing, because I feel like that probably comes and goes with that variable.
We definitely see a lot of solo recruiters that come back in. And in that case, usually the question is asked, what are you doing with are you sunsetting your book of business? Are you bringing your book of business into the company? Because we've definitely seen scenarios where solo recruiters want to go to work for a firm, but still want to keep their business open as well. And so, that typically does not go over well.
Yeah. Although there's probably some who are like, listen, don't want to go like eat what I kill. Like, I want to go back to a model where there's a split desk and there's someone bringing in recs and I just want to recruit. Like, you probably get some of that too. And like,
we absolutely do. Yeah. We absolutely do. And I think it just depends on, how successful the person has been in, their own search practice or running their own desk, and what are all the other factors involved. And maybe sometimes it's, I don't want to run the entire business by myself anymore. I don't want to do all my own invoicing. I don't want to do all my own fee agreements, but I have a lot to bring to the table. I know how to run a search, but I want somebody else to do all those other pieces.
Yeah.
How would you structure that? So let's say somebody works. I'm sure you've dealt with that before. I'd imagine someone has a book of business or their existing clients. They want it, but they're tired of doing it on their own. Go to a bigger firm. They want to be rolled in, but they want to be compensated for what they're bringing into the door. If you were a firm owner, how would you structure that if you saw an opportunity to bring somebody on board like that? Like, how would you do it?
Well, I think you have to be really creative, and you have to know that they really are bringing. I mean, that's a true business plan. You have to know that they're bringing true, real clients to the table and searches to the table. You know, our model is that, you know, every recruiter on the team shares everything 50-50. And so, you know, we are a group of collaborators. So I think if you have somebody like that and they can bring that to the table, the more that you can share with them, the better. It's not going to work in every structure. But, you know, for example, we have somebody that's been with us for 31 years that has a combination of her own clients that she brought to the table, clients that we put on her desk. You know, in that case, maybe if they're clients that she's brought to the table herself, she gets a higher percentage. So I think you just have to take your blinders off and be a little creative in those deals.
And they could hopefully see the bigger picture, the longer view of, you know, together we can make more.
Correct.
Well, for me, and again, I always bring him on these shows because he was always a big mentor of mine for many years. But Jeff Kay, you know, we all know him, you know, in the business. He had talked about because he had done the same thing with Kay Bass when he was really good at bringing in existing practices and rolling them into his firm. And he would talk about how basically he sold his say, look, if you're making $250,000 out of off your kitchen table, maybe some years you come in and you be part of a big culture, you get all assured services, IT, all these different things that you wouldn't get otherwise. Plus, we'll take your $250,000 and we'll show you how to double that and make more, actually bring home more than you're bringing home now in our structure with all of the resources. And so he would also kind of make it a point to, it's still like your business. You still in a lot of ways or have your own P&L within our four walls. Right. Now I'd imagine that's easier said than done, or easier to do, let's say in a direct hire environment versus let's say you come into an organization that's an existing, let's say staffing company with staff augmentation and interim and all that. But have you seen that be successful in other firms, like those sorts of models where you bring in an existing business into?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, we talk about the large staffing firms a lot, you know, and then our niche being more of these privately held firms. We see a lot of people move from, you know, the larger firms to a privately held firm for equity, stock opportunities, you know, the opportunity to be, you know, part of an executive leadership team in a scrappier environment. And so we see some, you know, really great packages created there, and usually it's equity.
So let's say obviously, if somebody's looking to hire, you want them to reach out to Mee Derby, right? That's a given. But obviously, I'd imagine that people are going to try to hire on their own initially, at least explore the market before they reach out to a firm, just like any of your other clients will with the clients that we work with. So for somebody who, let's say an owner that has a few people, but, you know, I don't want to say they're run of the mill, but it's not like they've got a brand, right? They're, you know, Joe Blow recruiter company. Well, if you were in their position, look at the market now, and if you decide, okay, you know what, I want to grow and use the opportunity, the market, the way it is, to grab a really good talent, what will be your first order of business to start the process, right? Whether it be, you know, how do you make your opportunity more attractive? What would you do to start reaching out to people? But what would be the first order of business to start that process? If they
really understand their differentiator. I mean, you know, to attract people to your organization, you do really need to speak to, why are you different? You know, and it's not just, oh, I'm different because I give my clients white glove service. I'm different because I'm embedded in your industry. You know, I participate in the industry. I volunteer in the industry. I'm part of these associations. But you really, for us, when we take on a new client, we need to really understand why somebody's going to want to come to work for them. And we need their value proposition.
And your average value proposition, what would you rate it? One of these? Let's be honest.
Well, wait, say that again.
Your average value proposition for your average staffing company, is it one of these? Be honest. Would you say, you know, how would you rate most value propositions for most staffing companies?
Well, I think again, unique for us because we're working with some of the smaller players.
Mhm.
We've got some smaller players that have some really unique positions in the industry, just like our
Mhm.
position. We have a client right now who is a light industrial staffing provider that truly goes to market as a light industrial staffing provider, but they have a platform that will truly kind of turn the light industrial staffing industry on its ear, because their platform truly allows a customer to manage their contingent
Mhm.
workforce front to back, to see who's coming when, to rate the people, to allow them to pick their shifts. So, in that case, people want to go to work for them because they get the opportunity to sell something slightly different. If they've been selling the same large enterprise customers for years, this is the opportunity to sell it as a true solution with, it's a technology enabled solution. So, I think, yes, we definitely all have those clients that you may not be as excited to work on their searches,
Mhm.
but most of our clients we're pretty excited to work on. I mean, we have a pretty unique set of clients.
That's good.
Well, and I
Well,
think that if you're, oh, sorry.
well, and not imagine the clients you do work with, you help them develop an employer value proposition as well. You're not just taking their
Yes.
existing one and running with it. I'd
Right.
imagine you're consultative. So you're trying to, what about this? What about that? Right. So you're trying
Right.
to help them develop one.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, I
But
think that like you mentioned that the kind of tier you operate within and, kind of starting there, maybe 10 million-ish and bigger or whatever. I think some of those might be closer to a value proposition being defined than maybe a lot of the small shops. And I think a lot of those have a really hard time differentiating. And I used to run one, so I know where you're like, one or two people with, two or three recruiters working for them, maybe five or six, you know what I mean? Like those are a dime a dozen and all of us say the same stuff. And largely the whole book of business and the whole business is predicated on the owner's relationships, which is not a
Right.
bad thing, but it is those people are probably not your target customers because maybe they're not big enough to afford you or see
Right.
value in using you. But I imagine the ones that get to the scale where they are an ideal customer for you are probably closer to that because their business has developed more. So maybe they have a little bit
Mm-hmm.
better value proposition because your average, again,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, nothing against it. I ran one for 10 years. I know we really didn't have much of a value proposition other than like, hey, you like working with me, right? So hire people from me. They would have a hard time quantifying it. But it is funny though, because when you hire for companies in general, whether it's recruiting or otherwise, like there's plenty of companies that I still talk to that they're like, hey, we need you to hire a VP of HR for us or this and that. And I'm like, well, tell me about, why people work here. And they're like, well, we offer this kind of benefit or that's, you haven't gone any deeper than that. It's good. So
we have a
I
great
imagine that,
culture or
yeah,
whatever,
great culture.
Yeah.
Or if they're just like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, hey, well, I would see a lot of people transition across recruiting firms. Like when I said, going back to when I was hiring for a number of Yo offices around the country years ago. And, I'd talk to people that worked for all the usual players, all the various companies. They're small companies, they were the big companies, whatever, in every market, all these different ones around the country. And, a lot of times the value proposition at each of them was just, oh, we pay like a little bit better commission, or oh, we throw this extra override in, or like it was, they were trying to differentiate for the most part on just nominal differences in comp structure. And that was like it. You probably see a fair amount of that.
Oh, we absolutely see that. And one of the things that's important to us when talking to clients is tell us a little bit about your leadership. Tell us about your internal leadership and how each of them got into their roles and what they do on a daily basis to groom the people under them.
Yeah.
And because that you learn a ton through asking those kind of questions and what is somebody's leadership or career track when they come into your organization and how do they get supported in that leadership track. And we have clients that the ones that can very clearly speak to, it's easy to get candidates in play. I have one, for example, it's a staffing firm that is focused on the skilled trades industry, and the role we're filling is a director of IT. So it's to run all their technology. But what's important to the person that owns the firm is she can clearly speak to, here's how I want to support you on how you want to learn in your job. And if I need to spend money to do that, if you come to me and say, I need a project management class, or I need this class, or I need leadership training. So leaders that can speak to how they support leaders in their organization make it easy to hire for them.
That makes sense because, and as you talked about earlier, people leave companies, they leave managers, they leave people, right? So like if you are a good performer somewhere and one of the things holding you back is that you feel like a lack of leadership and you're not getting much from the current company you're working for, other than they give you a salary every month and tell you to go, here's a phone book, go find some business. But you're like, oh, I have this gap, I have this void I need to fill, and maybe if I go there, like then I can grow and I can get more of what I'm looking for.
Now, I'm curious. Now, we're coming to the end of our interview, but I do want to cover one thing with you, and I want to see if you have any cautionary tales. And so, again, I always say that our business we're like the land of misfit toys, right? No one, obviously recently people can go to college and learn how to become a recruiter, but back when we first got into business, you had to fall, use my French, but you had to fall ass backwards into the business. It wasn't like there's a career path to become a recruiter. And so you have lots of personalities and it's so fragmented, such a cottage industry. So given that a firm owner that's looking to grow and starting to hire, do you have any cautionary tales? Because I'm sure you have some stories of things that you should not do. What cautionary tales do you have if you're an owner looking to hire? What do I need to watch out for?
Well, I think first of all, you need to really think about what your expectations are for the role and how you'll, again, support that person in the role. In a small firm, there may not be what everybody sees as, this exact line of career growth. I mean, we're prime examples of that. We're a team of 14, but I can't say that everybody has a path to leadership. We've just recently created some of these leadership roles. But you need to clearly figure out, okay, what else am I going to be able to do for this person outside of leadership to support their interest? Not everybody in the firm is a leader in a small company, but some people have strengths that others don't. Like, for example, we have one person on the team that is kind of championing our use of AI and how we'll use it as a company. So he's a sole desk recruiter, runs a 360 desk, but has a huge interest in the future use of technology. So he helps us pilot things. He helps spread it across the team. He helps train others. But I think my cautionary tale is spend as much time as you need with the person up front to ensure that they are the right person for your team. When we hire, and we don't hire that often, maybe one or two people a year, if that. But I always tell people in the beginning, our interview process is long because you will talk to every single person on our team, because I also want you to get their purview of how they felt like they were supported to get their desk up and running. But the entire team has to buy into it too. So my cautionary tale is spend as much time as you need with the person to get to know the person before bringing them on board.
And I would say is this one other note I want to make a point of. You mentioned this guy that you have, who's a 360 recruiter, but he's really big into technology. So he's, I guess, initiating or maybe leading the charge internally on implementing AI and technology, et cetera. And I know for a lot of people, especially folks that maybe have a bit of an independent streak, but they're not necessarily want to be an independent recruiter. They want to put their handprint on an organization. They want to feel like they're making a difference. And sometimes for a lot of recruiters, it's not just about billing. I mean, billing's great. Don't get me wrong. The money in this business is amazing. It is amazing. You could quite literally be a grade school dropout, and it doesn't matter. You can make a mint in this business if you can close deals. But I got to imagine having a guy like that internally that can say, I did this, and I created this initiative. I put my handprint on Mee Derby, and if I leave now, that stays. I have to imagine that's a big part of building a brand and building a value proposition for new people. Give them the opportunity to make a difference, lasting handprint on the organization, right?
And allowing them to have their own personal brand. Don't be afraid to let your people have their own personal brand within your organization, because it will only help the organization in the end.
Yeah, if you're afraid of,
yeah.
Well, yes, I was going to say, if you're afraid of them building their own personal brand and them leaving, then be a better place to work so they don't leave.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Don't have it be fear-based. Don't have it be just like with non-competes, going away and all the other stuff. It's okay. Well, if you just have a mechanism that basically keeps people and it's based on fear or loss, as opposed to just be better.
Right.
People want to work there.
Be a better person to work for. I could not agree more. We have somebody who has now been with us for about 2 years and came out of a traditional commercial staffing environment, and really the traditional 8 to 6 in the branch, driving around to support 7 different branches.
Ugh.
And when she came to us, my rule with everybody is, I don't care if you're away from your desk for 2 hours or 3 hours in the middle of the day, just send an email to the team that says away from my desk. So we don't expect to hear back from you. But like the first time she could actually go get her hair cut in the middle of the day, she's like, that was like life-changing. Like that and I'm like, and you're performing and you're doing a great job and you're having fun at your job. We trust, I think in a performance-based environment, all of the, recruiting is a performance-based environment. We trust you to do your job.
That's a big change. I know for a lot of folks like that, like I've been independent, Chris, you're independent, Kim, you're the head of the company, but we work in environments where, we need to get a haircut during the day, you get my nails done, whatever,
Right.
You go off and take off as long as you're billing. And I think a lot of people who are stuck in those really larger staffing companies that I did the same thing. I spent I worked for Kelly Services really early in my career, and I had to be in the office. It was 8 to 5, and I had to wear a tie every day, and it's just and had my hour lunchtime.
And all that.
Right.
Yeah, it was and then going to a more of a national search firm environment where I got to be the master of my own fate, to draw that old Seinfeld line. It was a huge change, and it's just something that, and again, it's a great value proposition on a match, especially for someone coming out of a big corporate environment.
And so if I've got maybe a minute for just one more thought related to that. So we're talking about the work environment you have, and in the performance-based, trusting people, not being where David and I, and probably you, had to be environments where, they're tracking our calls very carefully. Right. How many outbound dials did you make? Blah, blah, blah. What kind of metrics or what kind of key indicators do you track for your people that let you know that they're on the right track, so that you don't have to be, over their shoulder? Do you know what I mean? Are there what's your dashboard?
Exactly. And so, what I look for everybody on the team to do is talk to 20 new industry people a week.
Okay.
Submit 5 to 7 of those to our clients to result in 3 to 5 client interviews a week. Because if you can keep that rolling, if you can keep that level of activity rolling, you will always have somebody in first, second, final, and offer stages.
Because they're all leading indicators.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't control who gets hired, but you can control how much you put into the process.
Right.
So as long as they've got that, as long as they're hitting that metric basically every week or whatever, you're not bugging them. You're like, hey, what do you need from me? Okay.
Right.
Well, that reminds me. So we're going to have to wrap up here in a minute, but I will say that reminds me of a saying that I first learned. I started working search after Kelly with MRI in 2000. That's where I learned the actual search business and got away from staffing. And in my office at the time, they called interview sendouts. They're called sendouts, right? So you get a sendout. And the saying was, a sendout a day keeps the manager away.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't know that I've heard that one. I love that.
Yep. So another day keeps the manager away. With that said, we'll wrap this up. Kim, thank you very much for being on. I do want to promote the company. So if anybody's watching this, and again, we get most of our viewers kind of a replay. So folks, by the way, if you're watching the replay, I should have mentioned this earlier, please comment replay down below. If you're watching this live, comment live. It'll help the algorithm. Please love, share the show. In addition, if you're looking to hire, and I know for most recruiters, you think, hey, we're great recruiters. I can recruit for myself, but recruiting other recruiters is slippery. It's very difficult. So if you're looking for a professional that can help you along the way, or if you're looking for your own next level opportunity with one of Kim's clients, I think Kim mentioned she's working on 55, 60 some requirements right now, positions. So if you're looking for your next opportunity, whether you're a solo recruiter, working for another staffing company, or if you're a high level manager, go to meederby.com. If you're listening on audio on Spotify, it's meederby.com. We'll make sure to leave the link down in the show notes.
I know who I'm going to call if I ever look for a job again. So
That's right.
You'll be more plugged in than your team. You're all remarkably entrenched. That's fantastic.
And
Well,
Kim,
thank you. Such a great opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
Take good care of your teams.
And to send that a dig, use the manager way. That's the line of the show. All right, Kim. Well, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it, and it's great having you in my network. Great having you on the show. And with that said, for everybody watching, thank you for watching. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody here in the U.S., and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.